Jake Morrison sat in his old leather chair, looking at the screen in front of him. The message had come in 3 hours ago, and he was still trying to understand what he was reading. His company, Terran Defense Solutions, got many strange jobs. But this one was different. The message came from something called the Galactic Pest Control Council. Jake had never heard of them before. They wanted to hire humans to fix a bug problem on some faraway planet. The pay was terrible, almost like they were doing them a favor by offering work at all. Lisa Grant knocked on his office door and walked in. She was his best worker when it came to dealing with alien clients. Her face looked worried as she sat down across from his desk. "Did you read the whole message?" she asked, pointing at his screen. "Yeah, I read it. Some aliens want us to kill bugs on a mining planet. They say it's easy work that should take a few days." Jake leaned back in his chair. "The pay is garbage, though." Lisa shook her head. "It's not just the pay, Jake. Look at who tried this job before us." Jake looked at the screen again. The Alterian civilization had tried first. Everyone in the galaxy knew about the Alterians. They had energy weapons that could destroy entire cities. After them, the Nereid Federation sent their biowarfare experts. These were people who could create diseases that killed anything they wanted dead. Even the Kronos Empire had sent their best soldiers. The Kronos Empire never backed down from a fight. All of them had failed. If all these powerful aliens couldn't handle some bugs, why do they think we can? Jake asked. Before Lisa could answer, his computer made a sound. An incoming video call from the aliens. Jake pressed the accept button, and the screen filled with the face of something that looked like a tall, thin person with blue skin and 4 eyes. "Greetings, human," the alien said, in a voice that sounded like it was talking to a child. "I am Ambassador HFY of the Galactic Pest Control Council. I trust you have reviewed our contract offer." Jake tried to keep his voice friendly. "Yes, we looked at it. Can you tell us more about these creatures you want us to remove?" Ambassador HFY made a sound that might have been laughter. "They are simple pests, nothing more. Small creatures, about the size of your Earth cats. They reproduce quickly and have been interfering with our mining operations on Kepler 442b. If they're so simple, why did the Alterians fail?" Lisa asked. The ambassador's 4 eyes all looked at her with annoyance. The Alterians overcomplicated the situation. They used too much force for such a small problem. The Nereid Federation tried to be too clever with their biological weapons. The Kronos Empire treated it like a war instead of simple pest control. Jake felt something was wrong about this whole situation. What exactly do these creatures do? They dig tunnels. They eat some of our equipment. Nothing that humans cannot handle with basic extermination methods. The ambassador's voice got even more condescending. "We chose your species because you are known for being adequate at simple tasks. This job requires no special skills or intelligence." Jake's jaw tightened. He had been a Marine for 15 years before starting his company. His team had handled jobs that would scare most aliens. But this blue-skinned jerk was talking to him like he was an idiot. "The payment you're offering is very low," Jake said. "It reflects the simple nature of the work," Ambassador HFY replied. "Surely humans do not expect premium payment for basic pest removal." Lisa looked at Jake and raised her eyebrows. They both knew this felt like a setup, but they needed the work. Business had been slow lately. "We'll need to bring our full team," Jake said. "That seems excessive for such a minor problem, but do as you wish. The transport ship will arrive at your facility tomorrow. We expect this matter resolved quickly and quietly." The call ended, leaving Jake and Lisa staring at the blank screen. "I don't like this," Lisa said. "Something's not right about the whole thing." Jake nodded. "Yeah, but we need the money. And if it really is just bugs, we'll be done in a few days." He called his team together for a meeting. Carlos Rivera was his explosives expert, a man who could blow up anything or be very careful about it, depending on what the job needed. Dr. Amy Foster knew more about alien biology than most aliens knew about themselves. Ryan Clark could make any computer or machine do whatever he wanted. Kate Sullivan could hit a target from 3 miles away and move through any terrain without being seen. Ben Cooper carried the biggest weapons and never complained about their weight. Tony Martinez could patch up anyone who got hurt and keep them fighting. These 6 people had worked together for 3 years. They trusted each other completely. So let me get this straight, Carlos said after Jake explained the job. Some aliens want us to kill bugs, and they're paying us almost nothing to do it. That's about right, Jake replied. And the most powerful species in the galaxy all failed at this same job, Kate added. Also correct. Ben Cooper laughed. Sounds like either the easiest money we'll ever make, or we're walking into something really bad. Dr. Foster was looking at her tablet, reading about the planet they were going to. Kepler 442b is a mining world. Lots of metals and rare elements. The automated systems have been shut down for months. Months? Ryan asked. How long does it take to kill some bugs? That's what we're going to find out, Jake said. Pack for a week, but bring supplies for a month. If the best aliens in the galaxy couldn't handle this, maybe it's not as simple as they're telling us. Tony Martinez was cleaning his medical equipment. Anyone else think it's weird that they specifically asked for humans? I mean, if this is such easy work, why not use their own people? The room got quiet. Everyone was thinking the same thing, but no one wanted to say it out loud. They were being set up for something, but they didn't know what. Look, Jake said finally, we all know this smells bad, but we need the work, and we're good at what we do. Whatever those bugs are, we'll figure out how to handle them. Lisa came back into the room with a data pad. I just got the coordinates for Kepler 442b. It's 3 weeks travel from Earth. 3 weeks there, however long the job takes, 3 weeks back, Jake said. Everyone still in? All 16 members nodded. They had been through worse situations together. Whatever was waiting for them on that mining planet, they would face it as a team. The next morning, the alien transport ship arrived. It was bigger than Jake expected, with room for their equipment and supplies. The alien crew barely spoke to them during the loading process. As Earth got smaller behind them, Jake looked out the window and wondered what they were really flying toward. Ambassador Vex High had called it a minor pest problem, but Jake had been a soldier long enough to know that the worst fights always started with someone saying it would be easy. 3 weeks later, they would learn just how wrong the aliens had been about everything. The transport ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel near Kepler 442b. Then Jake got his first look at the planet through the window. It should have been busy with mining ships and orbital stations. Instead, everything looked dead and quiet. Where is everyone? Dr. Foster asked, joining him at the observation window. The planet below was brown and rocky, with deep scars across the surface where the mining equipment had been working. But Jake could see that all the machines had stopped. The massive excavators sat silent in their pits. The processing plants that should have been glowing with activity were dark. Captain Zolkar, the alien ship commander, came to speak with them. He was from the same species as Ambassador Vex High, with the same blue skin and 4 eyes. But unlike the ambassador, he looked nervous. We will drop you at landing zone 7, Captain Zolkar said. The mining control center is 2 kilometers. From there, you can coordinate your pest removal from that location. What happened to all the workers? Jake asked. They were evacuated when the creatures became too disruptive, the captain replied quickly. Standard safety procedure? Kate Sullivan was studying the planet through a pair of high-powered binoculars. "Jake, you need to see this." She handed him the binoculars and pointed to an area near the main mining site. Jake adjusted the focus and felt his stomach drop. The ground was covered with holes. Not small holes like a rabbit might dig, but large tunnels big enough for a person to walk through. There were hundreds of them, maybe thousands, stretching out in all directions from the mining sites. "Those don't look like cat-sized bug holes," Jake said. Dr. Foster took the binoculars next. After a few minutes of looking, she turned to Captain Zol Carr. "How big did you say these creatures were?" "About the size of your domestic cats," the captain answered, but his voice wavered slightly. "Then why are those tunnel entrances big enough for humans to walk through?" she asked. Captain Zolkar's 4 eyes all blinked at different times, which Jake was learning meant the alien was lying. Perhaps they worked together to dig larger spaces. Ryan Clark was at his computer, scanning the planet with the ship's sensors. "Captain Morrison, you should see this. I'm picking up electromagnetic activity all over the planet. Strong signals, organized patterns." "What kind of patterns?" Jake asked. "Communication patterns. Like radio signals, but biological. And they're coming from everywhere." The alien captain moved toward the exit. "I must prepare for your departure. We will remain in orbit until you complete your mission." After he left, Jake gathered his team in their equipment bay. "Okay, people, forget everything the aliens told us. We're not dealing with simple bugs here." Carlos Rivera was checking his explosives. "The tunnel entrances are huge. If the bugs are really cat-sized, they must have millions of them down there." "Or the bugs aren't cat-sized," Ben Cooper said, loading ammunition into his weapons. Dr. Foster was looking at her biological scanner readings. "The electromagnetic signatures Ryan detected are too organized to be from simple creatures. This suggests intelligence, possibly collective intelligence." Kate Sullivan finished assembling her sniper rifle. "I don't like that we can't see any of these creatures from orbit. If there are millions of them, where are they hiding?" "Underground," Tony Martinez said. "In those tunnels?" Jake nodded. "Which means we're going into their territory, not ours." The ship landed at Zone 7 with a loud thud. Jake could see the mining control center in the distance, a large building that should have been full of workers monitoring the excavation operations. Now it looked empty and dark. They unloaded their equipment and set up a base camp near the landing pad. The alien ship took off immediately, leaving them alone on the planet. Jake noticed that Captain Zolkar seemed very eager to get away from the surface. "First priority is to secure the control center," Jake said. "We need to see what happened here." The walk to the control center took 30 minutes. Along the way, they passed several pieces of mining equipment that had been torn apart, not blown up or melted like Jake would expect from energy weapons. They looked like something had taken them apart piece by piece. "Look at this," Carlos called out. He was examining a large excavator that had been completely disassembled. "Every bolt has been removed. Every wire has been carefully taken out. This wasn't destroyed. It was harvested." Dr. Foster was scanning the area with her instruments. "I'm detecting metal traces leading toward those tunnel entrances. Whatever took this apart carried the pieces underground." Ryan Clark set up his portable computer and tried to access the mining control systems. "I can get into the network, but most of the sensors have been disabled. The ones that are still working show activity all through the underground tunnel." "System, what kind of activity?" Jake asked. "Movement. Lots of movement. And energy signatures that look like manufacturing processes." Kate Sullivan had climbed to the top of a nearby ridge to get a better view of the area. She came back down looking troubled. "The tunnel system is massive. I can see entrances for miles in every direction. And some of those holes look fresh, like they're still expanding. They reached the control center as the sun was setting. The building's main door had been removed, not broken down but carefully taken apart. Inside, all the computer equipment was gone. The walls had been stripped of their metal panels. Even the lighting fixtures had been removed. They took everything, Ben Cooper said, his voice echoing in the empty room. Dr. Foster was examining the walls where the equipment used to be. Look at these markings. They're too precise to be from simple creatures. These were made by tools. Jake felt a chill that had nothing to do with the evening air. Tools? Cutting tools, specifically designed for removing electronic components without damaging them. Ryan Clark set up his equipment in the empty control room. I'm still getting those electromagnetic signals. They're stronger now, and they're coming from directly below us. As if responding to his words, a low humming sound started coming from beneath the building. It grew louder, then faded, then grew loud again. The pattern repeated several times. That sounds like communication, Tony Martinez said. Dr. Foster nodded. Organized communication. They know we're here. Kate Sullivan was watching the tunnel. Entrances through her rifle scope. Movement. Multiple contacts emerging from the tunnels, about 500 meters out. Jake grabbed his binoculars and looked where she was pointing. At first, he didn't see anything. Then the creatures moved into the fading sunlight, and he understood why the most powerful species in the galaxy had failed. They weren't cat-sized. Bugs. They were as big as dogs, with hard shells that gleamed like metal. But more importantly, they were carrying things. Tools, weapons, pieces of machinery. They moved in organized groups, with some creatures acting as scouts while others carried equipment. Those are not pests, Jake said quietly. No, Dr. Foster agreed, studying them through her own instruments. Those are engineers. As they watched, more creatures emerged from different tunnel entrances. Dozens became hundreds. The creatures spread out in a coordinated pattern, surrounding the control center but keeping their distance. Ben Cooper raised his plasma rifle, but Jake stopped him. Hold your fire. They're not attacking, they're positioning. Ryan Clark's computer started making alarm sounds. Jake, I'm picking up massive electromagnetic pulses from their location. If they release those pulses at full strength, they'll fry every electronic device we have, including our weapons, Kate added. The creatures maintained their positions as darkness fell. In the distance, Jake could see lights moving through the tunnel system. Not biological light, but artificial illumination. The creatures had electricity. We need to report this, Jake said, reaching for his communication device. To who? Lisa Grant's voice came through the radio from their ship, which was still in orbit. I've been monitoring alien communication channels. Ambassador Vex High is telling the Galactic Council that you've begun standard pest elimination procedures. Tell him that's not what's happening down here, Jake replied. I tried. He said human concerns about the mission scope were expected, and that you should proceed with simple extermination methods as agreed. Jake looked around at his team. They were surrounded by highly organized, tool-using creatures that had already demonstrated they could disable advanced technology. The creatures had been studying every species that came to fight them, learning from each encounter. And now they were studying humans. Lisa, patch me through to Ambassador Vex High directly, Jake said. A few minutes later, the ambassador's condescending voice came through the radio. Captain Morrison, I trust you are making progress with the simple pest removal. These aren't pests, Jake said. They're an intelligent species with advanced capabilities. They've been taking apart your mining equipment and using it to build their own technology. Nonsense. You are clearly overthinking a simple situation, as humans often do. Please proceed with basic extermination procedures. Listen to me, Jake. said, his voice getting hard. The Alterians failed because these creatures adapted to energy weapons. The Nereid Federation failed because the creatures developed biological resistance. The Kronos Empire failed because these things learned military tactics. Complete your assignment, Captain Morrison, or we will find someone who can handle simple pest control. The communication ended, leaving Jay. Jake and his team spent the night in the empty control center, taking turns on watch. The creatures never attacked, but they never left either. Every few hours, the electromagnetic humming would start again, growing stronger and more complex. Each time Dr. Foster had been working all night with her portable lab equipment. When morning came, she had disturbing news for the team. I managed to capture one of the smaller creatures that came too close to our perimeter, she announced, pointing to a containment unit. What I found changes everything. Inside the clear container was something that looked like a metal beetle the size of a house cat. But as Jake looked closer, he could see that parts of its shell weren't natural chitin. They were actual metal, somehow grown into the creature's body. It's not just using tools, Dr. Foster explained. It's incorporating technology directly into its biology. Look at this. She pointed to the creature's front legs, which ended in appendages that looked like tiny welding torches. Those aren't natural. This creature has somehow grown industrial equipment as part of its body. Carlos Rivera whistled softly. No wonder they can take apart machinery so precisely. It gets worse, Dr. Foster continued. I analyzed the metal components in its shell. They're made from processed ore from this planet, but refined in ways that require advanced metallurgy. These creatures didn't just learn to use the mining equipment, they improved on it. Ryan Clark had been monitoring the electromagnetic signals all night. The communication patterns are getting more sophisticated. I think they're sharing information about us, just like they did with the previous species that came here. Kate Sullivan returned from her morning reconnaissance. The tunnel system has grown overnight. I counted at least 50 new entrances, all perfectly positioned for tactical advantage. They're not just intelligent, Jake realized. They're military. Strategists. Ben Cooper was checking his equipment. My plasma rifle still works, but I'm getting interference when I try to target the creatures. They're actively jamming our targeting systems. Tony Martinez had been quiet, but now he spoke up with concern in his voice. Jake, I think we need to consider that we might be in over our heads here. These things have defeated every advanced species in the galaxy. Jake understood his team's worry, but something was bothering him about the whole situation. Dr. Foster, how long would it take for a species to evolve these capabilities naturally? Millions of years minimum. But based on the mining records, these creatures have only been here for about 2 years. 2 years to go from simple bugs to this level of sophistication. Jake shook his head. That's impossible. Ryan Clark looked up from his computer. Unless someone was helping them. The implication hit everyone at the same time. Jake activated his communication device and called Lisa Grant on their orbital support chip. Lisa, I need you to do something. For me. Check the Galactic Council's records for other planets with similar pest problems. There was a long pause before Lisa responded. Jake, I found 17 other worlds, all mining colonies, all shut down due to pest infestations that couldn't be controlled. And let me guess, Jake said grimly. They sent different species to handle each one. Yes, always different species, and they all failed. Dr. Foster's face went pale. They're not trying to exterminate these creatures. They're training them. The truth hit Jake like a physical blow. The Galactic Council has been using different species as teaching tools. Each failed mission gives the creatures new technology to study and adapt. Which means, Carlos said slowly, they brought us here to teach these things how to fight humans. Before anyone could respond, the humming sound from beneath the building suddenly stopped. In the silence that followed, They could hear something else. The sound of machinery starting up. Ryan Clark's instruments went crazy. Massive energy buildup underground. Whatever they've been building down there, they're turning it on. The ground began to shake, and lights appeared in tunnel entrances across the area. Not the random glow of bioluminescence, but organized industrial. Lighting Kate Sullivan was looking through her scope. "Jake, you need to see this." She handed him the binoculars and pointed to the largest tunnel entrance, about a kilometer away. Emerging from the opening was something that made Jake's blood run cold. It was definitely one of the creatures, but it was the size of a tank. Its shell was completely metallic, with what looked like weapon systems built into its body. Behind it came smaller creatures, but these were carrying devices that Jake recognized as improved versions of Alterian energy weapons. "They've been mass-producing themselves," Dr. Foster whispered, "using the mining equipment to build bodies and weapons. And now they're field testing their new capabilities," Jake added. Ben Cooper raised his rifle. "Should I engage?" "Not yet," Jake said. "If we fight them the way everyone else did, they'll just learn our tactics and add them to their collection." More creatures emerged from other tunnels. Some carried energy weapons like the Alterians used. Others had biological warfare equipment, similar to the Nereid Federation's tools. A few even wore armor that looked like it came from the Kronos Empire. "They're showing us everything they've learned," Ryan Clark said. "It's like they're proud of their collection." Jake felt anger building in his chest. The Galactic Council had sacrificed dozens of species to create these monsters, and now they expected humans to be the next lesson in the creature's education. His radio crackled to life. Ambassador Vexhi's voice came through, as condescending as ever. "Captain Morrison, our sensors indicate the pests are becoming more active. Surely this presents no challenge for human pest control methods?" Jake keyed his radio with more force than necessary. "Cut the act, Ambassador. We know what you're doing." "I'm afraid I don't understand your meaning, Captain. You've been training these creatures to fight every major species in the galaxy. Each failed pest control mission was really a lesson plan." There was a long pause before the ambassador responded. "Even if such an accusation were true, what difference would it make? You accepted the contract. Complete your mission or face the consequences of breach of agreement. What's the real plan here?" Jake demanded. "Why create these things?" Another pause, then Vexhi's voice became colder. "Humanity has been expanding too rapidly through the galaxy. Other species are concerned about your aggressive nature and unpredictable behavior. These creatures represent a solution to that problem." The truth was now completely clear. The Galactic Council had created a bioweapon specifically designed to fight humans, using the knowledge gained from defeating every other major species. The creatures on Kepler 442b weren't pests at all. They were the prototype for humanity's destruction. "You're going to use these things against human colonies," Jake said, "if necessary. But first, they need to learn how humans fight. Thank you for providing that education." The radio went silent, leaving Jake's team staring at each other in shock. "So, what do we do now?" Tony Martinez asked. Jake looked around at his team, then at the creatures positioning themselves for what was clearly going to be a major assault. Every species that had come here before had tried to fight these things using their best technology and tactics. All of them had failed and had their capabilities added to the creature's arsenal. But Jake was starting to realize that might be exactly why humans could succeed where others had failed. "We're going to do something no other species tried," Jake announced. "What's that?" Carlos asked. Jake smiled grimly. "We're going to fight dirty." The creatures began advancing toward the control center in perfect formation, displaying tactical knowledge learned from dozens of defeated enemies. They expected the humans to respond with advanced technology and sophisticated military strategy. They were about to learn that humans had been fighting with inferior equipment against superior enemies for their entire history, and they had gotten very good at it. "Listen up, people," Jake said, loading his oldest, most basic projectile weapon. "Forget everything they taught us about fighting aliens. We're going back to basics." As the sun reached its peak, the real battle for Kepler 442b was about to begin. But for the first time since arriving on the planet, Jake felt like they might actually have a chance. The creatures had learned how to fight every advanced species in the galaxy, but they had never fought desperate humans with nothing left to lose. Jake's plan was simple: do everything wrong according to standard military doctrine. The creatures had learned to counter advanced tactics, sophisticated weapons, and organized strategies. So the humans would use none of those things. "Carlos, I want you to stop thinking like a demolitions expert," Jake ordered. "Think like a teenager with firecrackers." Carlos grinned and started pulling out his oldest, most basic explosives. "Crude chemical bombs instead of precision charges?" "Exactly." "Dr. Foster, forget your fancy biological weapons. What did humans use to kill bugs before we had advanced science?" Dr. Foster thought for a moment. "Fire. Lots of fire. And poison. That kills everything, not just specific species. Ben, put away the plasma rifle. What's the most primitive weapon we brought?" Ben Cooper reached into his pack and pulled out an old-fashioned automatic rifle that fired metal bullets. "This thing is over 100 years old. Perfect. Kate, I want you to forget everything about professional sniping. Think like a hunter tracking animals." Kate Sullivan nodded slowly. "Unpredictable positions, random timing, no pattern they can analyze. Ryan, shut down all our advanced systems. We're going to communicate like humans did before we had technology." Ryan Clark looked confused. "Hand signals and shouting?" "Whatever works. Tony, get ready to patch us up the old-fashioned way. We're about to get hurt." The creatures had formed a perfect tactical formation about 500 meters from the control center. They were displaying weapons and capabilities from every species they had defeated, waiting for the humans to respond with their best technology. Instead, Jake walked outside and started shouting at them. "Hey, ugly bugs! You want to learn how humans fight? Come and get an education." The creatures stopped advancing, clearly confused by this behavior. Their electromagnetic communication increased in intensity as they tried to analyze this unexpected response. Carlos had been busy while Jake was talking. He came running out of the control center with a bag of homemade explosive devices. "Fire in the hole," he yelled, throwing crude chemical bombs in random directions. The creatures had been expecting precise military strikes. Instead, explosions went off everywhere with no apparent pattern or purpose. Some hit creatures, others hit empty ground. The randomness made it impossible for them to predict where the next attack would come from. Dr. Foster emerged from the building carrying containers of industrial chemicals she had found in the mining equipment. "If it's stupid but it works, it's not stupid," she called out, throwing the chemicals at the nearest group of creatures. The creatures advanced. Biological resistance had been designed to counter sophisticated toxins. But basic industrial acid and cleaning solvents were too simple for their defenses to recognize as threats. Several creatures started smoking and retreating in confusion. Ben Cooper set up his ancient rifle and started firing single shots at random targets. The creatures' electronic jamming systems were designed to interfere with advanced targeting computers. But a mechanical rifle with iron sights couldn't be jammed. His bullets punched through their high-tech armor like it was paper. Kate Sullivan had climbed onto the roof of the control center and was taking shots from an exposed position that any military sniper would consider suicidal. But because it was tactically insane, the creatures couldn't predict her actions. Every shot hit because they were trying to calculate where where a rational sniper would position herself. The creatures' perfect formation began to fall apart as they tried to respond to attacks that made no logical sense. Their collective intelligence was designed to analyze and counter sophisticated military tactics, but humans weren't using any. Ryan Clark was running around the battlefield shouting updates to his teammates. Carlos, more explosions to the left. Kate, they're trying to flank you, but they're doing it really obviously. The creatures attempted to jam his communications, but you can't jam someone yelling at the top of their lungs. Jake drew his sidearm, an old-fashioned projectile pistol, and started walking directly toward the largest creature. Every piece of tactical training he had ever received told him this was suicide. But that was exactly why it worked. The massive creature had been programmed with combat data from dozens of species. All of them had used cover, advanced weapons, and careful strategy. None of them had ever just walked up to it shooting a primitive gun. Jake's bullets hit the creature's sensor array, which had been designed to track energy weapons and guided missiles. It had never been programmed to deal with simple chunks of metal flying through the air. The creature staggered backward, its electromagnetic jamming system sparking and failing. Without its electronic warfare capabilities, it was just a big target. "Tony, throw me some of those chemicals," Jake called out. Tony Martinez lobbed a container of industrial solvent, which Jake caught and immediately threw at the creatures. Damaged sensors. The primitive attack caused a chain reaction that shut down the creature's entire electrical system. The smaller creatures began retreating toward their tunnels, their communication systems overloaded by trying to process completely. Illogical human behavior, but Jake wasn't finished. "Carlos, can you make those tunnels collapse?" "Not with precision charges," Carlos replied, "but I've got enough crude explosives to bring down half the mountain." "Do it." Carlos started throwing chemical bombs into tunnel entrances. The explosions weren't sophisticated enough to be countered by the creature's defenses, and the tunnels started collapsing one by one. Dr. Foster had mixed several industrial chemicals together to create a toxic cloud that was drifting toward the retreating creatures. "This stuff will kill anything that breathes," she announced cheerfully. The creature's biological resistance couldn't adapt fast enough to counter a poison that was literally designed to kill everything. More creatures collapsed as the cloud reached them. Ryan Clark was monitoring the electromagnetic signals from his position behind a pile of rocks. "Their communication network is crashing. Too much contradictory data." The creatures had been designed to learn from their enemies and adapt, but humans weren't giving them anything consistent to learn from. Every attack was different. Every tactic was irrational, and every strategy was completely wrong, according to military science. Kate Sullivan had moved to a new position inside a damaged mining vehicle and was picking off creatures with her rifle. "They keep trying to predict where I'll shoot from next, but I don't even know where I'll be." The battle continued for 2 hours, with humans running around like maniacs, while highly advanced creatures tried desperately to make sense of their behavior. The creature's sophisticated intelligence was working against them, trying to find patterns that didn't exist. Finally, the electromagnetic humming stopped completely. The surviving creatures had retreated deep underground, their communication network shut down by information overload. Jake's team regrouped at the control center, all of them wounded but victorious. They had defeated an enemy that had conquered every advanced species in the galaxy. "How did we do that?" Tony asked, bandaging a cut on Jake's arm. "We fought like humans instead of trying to fight like advanced aliens," Jake replied. "These things were designed to counter sophistication and intelligence. But sometimes the best solution is to be stupid and stubborn." Dr. Foster was examining samples from the defeated creatures. Their adaptive systems couldn't handle the randomness. "They're built to learn from patterns, but we didn't give them any patterns to analyze. Ryan Clark managed to restore communication with their orbital support. Lisa Grant's voice came through the radio, full of relief. "Jake, are you all right? I saw the explosions from orbit." "We're fine, Lisa. In fact, we're better than fine. We just figured out how to beat these things." "How?" Jake smiled. "By being the most unpredictable, irrational, and stubborn species in the galaxy." But even as his team celebrated their victory, Jake knew this was just the beginning. There were 17 other worlds with similar creatures, and the Galactic Council wasn't going to give up their plan to use them against humanity. The real war was just starting, and Earth needed to know what they were facing. "Lisa, get me a direct channel to Earth Defense Command," Jake ordered. "Priority 1. Tell them we've discovered a conspiracy that threatens every human colony in the galaxy." "What should I tell them about the situation here?" Jake looked around at his team, then at the smoking remains of creatures that had been designed to destroy humanity. "Tell them we solved their pest problem," Jake said, "and that we're about to solve a much bigger one." Ambassador HFY's voice suddenly came through the radio, no longer condescending but filled with panic. "Captain Morrison, what have you done?" "Our sensors show massive disruption to the specimens. We exterminated your pests, just like you asked," Jake replied calmly. "Those creatures represented years of development. They were nearly ready for deployment." "Deployment against human colonies, you mean?" There was a long silence before the ambassador responded. "You were supposed to provide training data, not actually defeat them." "Here's some free training data for you," Jake said. "Never underestimate humans. We've been fighting impossible odds our entire history, and we've gotten very good at it. This changes nothing. There are 17 other worlds with similar projects. You cannot stop all of them." Jake smiled grimly. "Watch us." Carlos Rivera was all ready. 3 months later, Jake Morrison stood in the command center of Earth Defense Headquarters, watching 17 different video feeds from across the galaxy. On each screen, human teams were executing simultaneous attacks on the Galactic Councils. Bioweapon Projects. Admiral Sarah Blake, head of Earth Defense, stood beside him as reports came in from each team. "Team 7 has eliminated the creatures on Tau City 4 using flamethrowers and farming equipment," she announced. "Team 12 reports successful mission on Proxima Station using kitchen chemicals and sporting goods," came another update. Jake smiled as he watched each team use completely different tactics. Team 3 had defeated their creatures using nothing but construction equipment and fertilizer bombs. Team 9 had won their fight with hunting rifles and pest control spray. Every single team had approached the problem differently, making it impossible for any surviving creatures to learn from the attacks. Dr. Foster was coordinating the biological warfare aspects from her position at the science station. All teams report the same results. The creature's adaptive systems can't handle random, illogical human tactics. Ryan Clark was monitoring communications across the galaxy. The Galactic Council is in complete panic. They're trying to evacuate their remaining projects, but our teams are hitting them faster than they can respond. The final report came in from Team 15. Mission accomplished on Kepler 186c using fireworks and lawn mower blades. The team leader announced cheerfully, "Admiral." Blake turned to Jake with satisfaction. 17 bioweapon projects, 17 successful missions. 0 human casualties. That's because we stopped trying to fight like other species and started fighting like humans, Jake replied. On the main communication screen, Ambassador HFY appeared, his 4 eyes all blinking rapidly in distress. Behind him, Jake could see other alien diplomats from the Galactic Council, all looking equally panicked. "This is an act of unprovoked aggression against peaceful scientific research," the ambassador declared. Admiral Blake stepped forward. "Peaceful research? You created bioweapons specifically designed to exterminate human colonies. That accusation is completely false, HFY replied, but his voice lacked conviction. Jake laughed. Ambassador, we have complete records from all 17 projects. Manufacturing facilities for biological weapons, genetic templates for enhanced combat creatures, and communication logs discussing deployment against human worlds. Ryan Clark had been busy during the 3 months since Kepler 442b. We also have copies of your communications with other council species, planning the human problem solution and discussing how to divide up our colonies after the bioweapons eliminated us. The other aliens on the screen began arguing among themselves in various languages. It was clear that not all council species had been aware of the full scope of the project. Admiral Blake's voice became stern. The Galactic Council will face charges of conspiracy to commit genocide, illegal weapons development, and violation of 17 interspecies treaties. You cannot prosecute us, Ambassador HFY protested. Humans are not members of the Galactic Council. That's about to change, Admiral Blake announced. As of today, humanity is forming the Independent Defense Alliance with 12 other species who are also targeted by your bioweapon projects. Jake had been part of the negotiations over the past months. The Alterian civilization still embarrassed by their failure on Kepler 442b had been eager to ally with the humans who succeeded where they failed. The Nereid Federation had joined after learning that several bioweapon projects were designed specifically to counter their aquatic nature. Even some members of the Kronos Empire had broken away from the Council to join the Alliance. The IDA now represents over 40% of known space, Admiral Blake continued, and we have jurisdiction to prosecute war crimes against our member species. Ambassador HFY's composure finally cracked completely. This is impossible. Humans are a primitive species, barely capable of space travel. Primitive? Jake stepped closer to the communication screen. We just defeated weapon systems that took you decades to develop, using equipment we bought at hardware stores. Doctor Foster joined the conversation from her station. Our analysis of your creatures showed fundamental flaws in the design philosophy. You created them to counter advanced tactics and sophisticated technology. But the most dangerous enemy isn't the most advanced one. It's the one desperate enough to try anything. Carlos Rivera's voice came through the communication system from his position coordinating the demolitions teams. Plus, you made the mistake of thinking humans would be predictable. We've been surprising ourselves for thousands of years. Kate Sullivan added her own observation from the Sniper Coordination Center. Every other species follows logical military doctrine. Humans make up new rules every time we fight. Ben Cooper's report came in from the weapons testing facility. Our primitive kinetic weapons have proven effective against every advanced defense system we've tested them against. Turns out that sometimes the old ways work better than the new ones. Tony Martinez was treating injured team members from the various missions, but even he had observations to share. The psychological factor was important too. Those creatures expected to face advanced aliens who would retreat when faced with superior technology. They never expected to fight humans who get more stubborn when things look impossible. Ambassador HFY made one final attempt to regain control of the situation. Even if you have won this minor conflict, humanity remains a threat to galactic stability. Your unpredictable nature and aggressive expansion will eventually lead to problems. Jake exchanged glances with Admiral Blake, then looked back at the screen. Ambassador, let me explain something about humans. We only become a threat when someone threatens us first. For 3 months, you've been planning to exterminate our entire species, Admiral Blake added. Did you think we would just accept that quietly? The bioweapon projects were a defensive measure against human expansion, HFY protested weakly. No, Jake said firmly. They were weapons of genocide. And now every species in the galaxy knows what the Galactic Council is willing to do to maintain power. Ryan Clark's monitoring station lit up with incoming communications. Admiral, I'm receiving requests for Alliance membership from 18 additional species. Word is spreading about what the Council tried to do. Admiral Blake smiled. It seems that other species don't appreciate the idea of being quietly eliminated if they become inconvenient to the Council. The aliens on the screen were now arguing, loudly among themselves. Several species were demanding explanations from the Council leadership. Others were threatening to withdraw from the Council entirely. Ambassador HFY made one last desperate attempt. What do you want from us? Full disclosure of all bioweapon projects, Admiral Blake replied. Reparations to the species you targeted, and a formal treaty guaranteeing that nothing like this will ever happen again. And if we refuse? Jake stepped forward again. Then you'll discover what humans are really capable of when we stop playing by galactic rules entirely. The threat hung in the air for a long moment. Everyone in the galaxy had just watched humans defeat supposedly impossible enemies using tactics that defied all conventional wisdom. The idea of facing human military forces that were actively trying to be unpredictable was terrifying to species that relied on logical planning and predictable strategies. We will consider your terms, Ambassador. HFY said finally, and the communication ended. Admiral Blake turned to Jake. Think they'll agree? They don't have much choice, Jake replied. Half the galaxy is requesting to join our alliance, and the other half is demanding answers from the Council. Dr. Foster looked up from her analysis station. The bioweapon technology could actually be useful if we modify it properly. Instead of creating weapons against specific species, we could develop defenses that adapt to any threat. Defensive applications only, Admiral Blake said firmly. We're not going to become the thing we just defeated. Jake nodded approvingly. Besides, we've already proven that the best defense against advanced enemies is to be too crazy for them to predict. 6 months later, Jake stood on the observation deck of the new Alliance headquarters, watching ships from dozens of species arrive for the first Independent Defense Alliance Council meeting. The Galactic Pest Control Council had been dissolved, its members either joining the Alliance or forming their own smaller confederations. Ambassador, HFY's species had eventually agreed to the Alliance terms after 3 more species withdrew. From the original Council, the bioweapon projects had been completely dismantled, with the technology turned over to Alliance scientists for defensive research only. Lisa, Grant joined Jake at the observation window. Hard to believe it all started with a pest control job. Best pest control job we ever took, Jake replied. We eliminated the biggest pests in the galaxy. Carlos Rivera came up behind them, carrying a bottle of champagne. I brought this too. Celebrate our first real vacation in a year. Vacation? Jake laughed. Lisa just accepted 3 new contracts from Alliance members. Apparently, word has gotten out that humans are good at solving impossible problems. What kind of problems? Carlos asked. Lisa consulted her datapad. A species that needs help with automated systems that have